So hi, thanks for coming and thanks for the organizers for arranging the talks this way. My talk had plenty of intro by Jacob and Matthew prior. Ring City had a funeral here. I see many Monero enthusiasts here. Thank you for too. What I have here is a recent advance from Monero Research Lab on Ring City. We overcame the sublinear scaling problem, also the mix and match attack. There will be a part of my talk where I'll have to stop because this parts of this research is still confidential information and I won't have time for questions either because I'll have to jump in for my team in the other room. So ring signatures, it was greatly introduced by Jacob. I can't do better. Basically, it enables a group to sign a message. No, it allows you to sign a message on behalf of a group instead of yourself without leaking identity or anything about your public key. And the good thing about this is that choosing the other public keys for this ring requires no coordination besides publishing it, for example, on a blockchain. So you can just select an samples from previous transactions and they have nothing to do with their private keys on this. We can make this even better with multi-layering. So you make your spend signature splitting up your balance in L parts, forming a matrix, and you only have to prove for the blockchain that you know an entire column of this matrix. That's basically your private key here. The problem with this one is that now we require coordination from the other guys because with this column, all public keys can be only used once. The CT part of Ring City, the confidential transactions are what's hiding the amount. So ring signatures are hiding your identity and confidential transaction schemes are hiding the amounts you are sending. We are doing it with Pedersen commitments and range proofs. You see that topologically we are trying to reach some linearity here. So first we lock in the amount you want to spend and then your way to not be able to play with different linear combinations for the same amount by range proofs. So you can't have negative stuffs. And I think that's public research that we have improvements on range proofs too, called bullet proofs from Bootle, but that's for another talk. So, quick intro on commitment schemes. A commitment scheme is an algorithm that has an input and a random nonce. They are equal if with a different nonce on the same input they are the same. They are hiding if with the same random nonce with different inputs are the same. And it's binding if the probability of differentiating two different commitment scheme on inputs and randomness are below a bound you define. This may sound a little hard. An easier way we cryptographers like to explain is that you are in a room, there is a computer with a keyboard, you enter something, data leaves the room, you have nothing to do about that, it's a black box, that something comes in. And you have to decide whether you are in a world where it's random junk coming into the computer, or it depends on your input. So the closer your chances are to 50-50 with this game, the better security you have. This is just an example of that. If the probability of differentiating, is it random or the same equal commitment scheme, if 50-50 you are good, and B is the differentiate from this 50-50 probability. So Ring City now has 3 algorithms, a key generation, basic stuff, a key image, a public key, a spending that outputs a spend signature from the secret keys, the key images, the matrix that we talked about now, commitments that you know an entire column of this matrix, a decommitment that can open up this is the trapdoor in this cryptographic scheme, and of course the message you want to provide into an adversary, and a verification for all these inputs. The current weakness sees for this, besides scalability, we know that currently we need OL times N size of proofs, and both Matthew and Jacob explained how it won't work once, for example, Monero blockchains got much bigger. But there are other mathematical problems here, that there are some elements in this finite field that you can't make decommitments on for the matrices. For example, the null element, you can do that. And of course, the mix and match attack that was presented last year in a white paper, de-anonymizing Monero, is just half of the story. It's not a technically easily feasible attack, but it exists by sending a signature with the same key but different key images. It's really basic stuff. Less entropy is less security. So we appended 2 new definitions of balance at Monero Research Lab for these schemes. The first is key image uniqueness. So double spend checking works now by checking that your key images hasn't been used ever on the blockchain before. And extractability, it's a proof that you as a spender have a trapdoor key that hides the index of the matrix, which holds your real private key and not just the junk. It's just a proof that you have this key. You don't have to provide it. It's zero knowledge. So String City, RTRS, Ring City, RTRS. String City, we still haven't decided which name we will go on with this scheme. Most likely it will be RTRS, just this. It's actually the abbreviation of the names of the authors of the white paper. So instead of Pedersen commitments, we choose Elgamal commitments with Fiat-Shamir transforms. Fiat-Shamir transform basically is a really fancy way of making a proof of knowledge, non-interactive and zero knowledge. It's not quite efficient, or rather, if you start from scratch making it non-interactive zero knowledge, you will probably get better results. But Fiat-Shamir transform is sufficient for this use case. Thus, we can get rid of the Schnorr variants of multisigs, because even though Schnorr proofs scale really well and they are highly efficient, they have this interactive part. So if you try to eliminate multiple rounds of communication with spender and verifier, you are just a step back, because you have to hash everything, append it, make another proof, and you are leaving the scalable margin again. And the headline here is that our result, this scheme, results in O log n overhead for proofs instead of O L times n. So it's feasible on Ethereum or in Bitcoin, but for other reasons too. The key theorem here is that every Pedersen commitment or Elgamal ciphertext can be lifted as an Elgamal commitment. For Pedersen commitments, it's easy. You just have to append your second generator on the decommitment R. And for Elgamal, we know that that for every multiplicatively homomorphic commitment to 1 is a valid multiplicative, additively homomorphic commitment to 0. And we only have to prove that we know an opening to 0, that we are not creating balance on the blockchain from thin air. No other amounts involved. So we can use this little trick for here. This achieves us the sublinearity and stealth addresses, so you can use the same public key on the blockchain multiple times, but reading just the transaction on the chain won't link me to your public key. So it's harder for nasty 3-letter agencies to track down your transaction history. In this new scheme, there was quite some attention on commitments and decommitments, because in this new scheme, we redefine public keys and key images as commitments, and your decommitments, your single decommitment is your private key. And you just have to append this non-interactive zero knowledge proof by the Fiat-Shamir transfer that you have this opening commitment. First, yes, you can open the public key to your key images. Elgamma has a really nice homomorphic property that you don't have to do on-chain or off-chain around that. I have the decommitment for the public key that has the same key image. That will be a lot of computational and storage overhead. You can do directly public key quotient group commitment of the key image, because as on the previous slides, we see that using the same randomness value, 0, is hiding in a commitment scheme. That was the first part. Can we, yeah, more, a little, more. One more, I think. No, one more. Yeah, this one. So the first part is our trick here. We can cut 2 steps on the verification because we are using a hiding commitment scheme with Elgamma. Thanks, we can. Yep. Next one, you have to prove that you know the security index in the matrix that holds your private key. We can use the same trick on every column of this matrix to get n commitments to 0. And this is the part that I won't have time to explain, and I can't really explain until the publish of the white paper. Bootle made a modification of the growth and call-wise non-interactive zero-knowledge proof. Basically, you input these matrices of commitments that you claim that you can open up to 0, and the return value is that how many of them actually opens up to 0. So how do we use this on the blockchain? What all this is about? So we replaced public keys and private keys with commitments and decommitments for achieving scalability and more privacy. So we can use these key images we used in the spending and verifying algorithms as public keys on a blockchain. So we achieved key image uniqueness, the new security definition we introduced. So lack of entropy with users and transactions won't affect your privacy anymore. The reduced overhead won't give us the extractability. This is a mistake in the presentation. It will give us the scalability. Pedersen commitments will hide our amounts that we are spending, and the multi-layer rings are hiding our metadata as users. And the second part of our headline here, that this scheme works with any group that we assume Diffie-Hellman is hard. This means any known cryptographically used elliptic curve, for example, SECP256K1 used in Bitcoin. And I exactly did that. So the work in progress implementation the guys at Monero Research Lab allowed me to start is actually targeted toward Ethereum and not Monero. But it will be blockchain agnostic. This means that you can do ring signatures on Bitcoin, Monero, and Ethereum with the same library. It's using OpenSSL. It supports plenty of elliptic curves, except the useful ones. So we will need either they will have to accept my Montgomery patch, or I have to introduce a level of abstraction. Sorry, developers, and if you are here. And some of you know that my specialty in Ethereum Foundation research is quantum proof cryptography, and of course there is a quantum proof ring learning with errors generalization of this scheme on the way long term. So thanks for your attention. Hope I can publish the white paper with the lab a bit more specific after the conference. Feel free to ask me questions after I've left the room on the way, or after the EvoZoom talk next room. Thanks.